Becca has a brief message that we're going to share to get us started.
Yeah, as most of you Manchester folks are familiar, we have kind of a little spiel before our virtual events, so we're excited to have you all here. Please keep in mind that all rules for conduct at events remain in place for virtual meetings, just like they would for in-person meetings. We still abide by all Manchester University rules and guidelines in the SOAR Student Handbook, and please be respectful of all participants in today's event and help us provide safe space for everybody. We're really glad that you're here and looking forward to a safe and productive event.
So to kind of get us started, I think we're just going to go around and do a quick introduction so everybody's familiar with each other, and then we will turn it over to our guest and let them take it away. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Tish Kalita. For those who don't know me, I'm the Director of Career and Professional Development here at Manchester.
I'm Leslie Marlatt. I'm the Assistant Director of Career and Professional Development.
I'm Megan Paulany, and I'm the Assistant Director for Student Diversity and Inclusion.
I'm Becca Hauff, University Pastor and Director of Church Relations.
I'm Emily Tyler, Director of Brethren Volunteer Service.
I'm Hannah Schultz, the Coordinator of Short-Term Service with BVS.
And I'm Jocelyn Siakula, the Orientation Volunteer Coordinator.
All right, so thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to record it, so any students who were unable to join us tonight are able to view it. I know we have a number of students who have asked us specifically about this opportunity, so we wanted to be able to record and share this back with them later. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Emily to talk with us and share with us about BVS.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us. We're grateful for this opportunity to share with Manchester University students about BVS, Brethren Volunteer Service, and what we have to offer. So I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it to Hannah. Hannah's going to start us off with an overview just of what BVS is.
Yeah, so Brethren Volunteer Service is a full-time service organization with the Church of the Brethren. And so we offer 1 to 2 year long volunteer placements domestically and internationally. So we partner with a bunch of service organizations ranging from working with the elderly, working with folks with disabilities, working with children on farms, in food pantries and soup kitchens, or doing office kind of work related to immigration law or peace building and policy. So we have lots of different opportunities for a variety of work with a bunch of different organizations. And like I said, these projects are located all across the United States, and we have some projects overseas in Northern Ireland, Africa, Japan, and a couple in Latin America as well. And although we are a ministry of the Church of the Brethren, we take a faith-based approach to service, but we are open to any and all faith traditions or no faith traditions. And some of our projects might be faith-based projects, so they might also take a faith perspective on what they do, but we have many projects that have nothing to do with religion at all. So anybody and everybody is welcome in BVS. So the first step in the BVS process is to apply to BVS on our online application. And then we'll interview with you, and once you're accepted, you'll let us know what orientation unit you want to go to. So we have 2 orientation units. One is in the summer at the end of July and beginning of August, and the second one is in the fall at the end of September and the beginning of October. And the orientation units are just a time to build some skills and training in service, to get to know you a little bit, for you to get to know us, hear a little bit about what the Church of the Brethren is and why service is important to us, and build some skills in like self-care, resiliency, cultural competencies, and some things to take with you to your projects. So you will go to your orientation unit, and at orientation you'll talk to us about what projects you're interested in. The project placement process is pretty unique to BVS. It's a conversation between you and our staff. So we get to know you, and you tell us the things that you're interested in, what kind of projects you'd like to go to, and then we work together with you and with the projects to find a good fit for you. So after orientation, you go to your project to serve for a year. And some of that might look a little different this year because of COVID-19, but Emily's going to speak to that in a little bit. So basically, while you're in BVS, we provide you with room and board, with a monthly stipend, with transportation, and with medical insurance. And you can also choose to defer your loans while you're in BVS if you'd like to. So I like to tell people that you might not make a lot of money in BVS, but you're also not going to lose money either, because basically everything that you need to live is covered by us. And this might look a little different depending on what project you go to. So the living situation, it's determined by your project. So you might live in an apartment by yourself. You might live in a room in a house with a family. You might live in a volunteer house with other volunteers. It really just depends on where you go to serve and what they have set up for you. So we have 2 community houses, one in Portland, Oregon, and one in Elgin, Illinois. So if you were going to serve in one of those 2 locations, you would live in a community house with other BVS volunteers and participate in some intentional community practices while living there. And the same goes for transportation. Again, we provide your transportation, but that might look different depending on where you're serving. So you might walk or bike to work. You might get money to take public transportation to your project, or you might get a car or a van that belongs to your project that you can drive back and forth. So while service looks a little bit different, depending on where you go, you will get all of those things that you need to live. All of that is provided to you while you're at your project. So that's one of the benefits of BVS. The other benefit of doing a volunteer program is that you have a built-in support system with you. So we check in with you throughout the year. We don't just send you to your project and wish you well. We'll do frequent check-ins with you, see how things are going with your living situation, with your supervisors, and just kind of in general, if it's a good fit for you, what you're learning from your experience. So for me, that was one of the greatest parts of being in BVS, is having that system of people who get what you're doing and who are checking in with you. And once a year in March, we bring all of our volunteers together for a week-long retreat. And the projects know about that, and they give you a week off to come gather with other volunteers. And it's a time for reflection and discernment, and just a time to have fun and be in community with each other. So those are some of the benefits of doing BVS. You also have some opportunities in BVS to grow your professional profile. So this is not just a year of serving, this is a year of professional development too. You learn so many skills in service, no matter what project you go to. You are working with supervisors, you are working with coworkers, you're developing some of those interpersonal communication skills. Maybe you're working in an office and you're getting new experience working in databases or with Microsoft Office Suite. Maybe you're working in a field that you've never been part of before, and you're learning some valuable experiences about something that you never thought you would learn about. So many jobs I found want you to have 2 to 3 years of experience, but it's so hard to get that experience if nobody will hire you. So that's what I love about BVS, is you get some of this practical job experience that you can talk about when you're applying for grad schools or when you're applying for future jobs. And one of the great things about being a college graduate is that you're already bringing skills with you. So you are already such a valued member of whatever team you're joining. So we encourage you to talk to your supervisor about what certifications you have and what skills you have. And your supervisors might give you opportunities to use some of those skills that you're bringing with you with your projects. Like, they're going to be excited if you are great with computers. They will give you opportunities to build databases, to create a new website, to work on things, because they know that you're bringing something special to the team. So many of these organizations couldn't survive without their volunteers. And so you are just as much a member of their staff and team as anybody else. And yeah, you have a lot of opportunities to contribute to their team and to learn things from them, and to learn some new skills that are going to make you unique and stand out in other settings. So that's a little bit about BVS and some of the benefits that it can bring to you.
Thanks, Hannah. Hannah said that she was the coordinator of short-term service with BVS, but she is also our recruiter extraordinaire. So she has this down. So that's why I asked her to share that, because she's gotten really good at it. I wanted to take a little bit of time to speak to how things are different in BVS right now because of COVID-19. As Hannah mentioned, typically we would have a 3-week orientation process where we're all together and we have all these sessions and we cook together and we get to know each other really well and we serve together. And it's becoming quite clear that that may not happen for us this summer. And so we have begun the process of trying to figure out how we shift some of how we do orientation to a virtual platform. The hardest part of that for us is this super unique thing about BVS is that what Hannah mentioned, that we place people at orientation. So our orientation is really how we usually get to know everyone and know where their gifts lie and what projects might be a best fit for them. And so this really presents a big challenge for us to shift pretty much completely how we operate our placement process. So we're looking at the possibility of pre-placing people and really trying to use the time. Applications for the summer orientation unit are due June 5th. And so we're really trying to we're going to try to use that time between June 5th and when orientation starts in the middle of July to get to know people a lot better and more intentionally before the orientation time and try to find placements before that time comes. We haven't yet nailed down all of our plans for what orientation is going to look like, so I won't share much about that, but we're working at that and how we can offer that still virtually, and working with our projects about what that looks like for them in receiving volunteers, whether people need to quarantine for a couple weeks when they get there, what different projects are doing to receive new volunteers. So really trying to keep our processes in line, but also really, of course, keeping people's safety in our minds as well. And so we're trying to get creative, and we've tried to talk with some people that know BVS really well and know BVS orientation really well to get some good input on that. So that's where we're at with that. It's still kind of up in the air, but I kind of feel like that's where everyone is right now. So next, I wanted to turn it over to Jocelyn. We had heard that there were several international students who might be considering BVS as an option, and Jocelyn's familiar with that process, and so I wanted to let her speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, so the whole process would, as Hannah had mentioned, is the application process and references and interview and such. But I know that the students who are here on an F1 visa are unable to work. However, you are able to have the OPT training, the optional practical training visa, which is typically takes approximately 3 months, according to the internet and according to people who I know who have applied for it and received this visa. And so those who would be planning on entering BVS would apply for that same visa, which is the work visa. And so it's the I-765. visa, I believe. And so you just have to fill out that visa process. And even I know that we, depending upon projects and the placement of the volunteer, it potentially would look slightly different based on payment or things like that. But there are definitely ways to discuss that and talk about that with the project specifically, and to know the type of visa and work permit that would be permitted by the F1 visa, student visa holders. And that allows you to work for 12 months as a in between, like a grad school, unless you have done the pre-student. There's like, you can either do it before you enter college or as like a gap year. And so you're only permitted to 12 months of that. So if you've done it previous to entering college, you're no longer eligible for that. Yeah. So it's a, yes. And so it's a process with the government, but I assume that it would still be processed. And when I was looking online at the government's web pages, it didn't say anything about those visas being slowed down or not being processed as some other immigration status visas. So that's all I have.
Okay. That is kind of what we've prepared, just a general overview. And I realize that is like information overload dump. But we also wanted to open it up for questions, things we haven't covered or clarification on things that we did cover. So I'll let people ask away.
I have a question. How do you guys count the year? Like, do you count the year from orientation or from when they start the project? The reason I ask that is specifically for international students is that they can't start working until they have their OPT authorization. And so for international students who may be able to be available for orientation, but their project doesn't start, you know, for a couple of weeks, because you said the orientation is like 3 weeks, you said? Right. So if it's like in that 3-week period, they can get their authorization, can they start with that orientation, but not start their job until their placement, until the day they're expected to show up at their project? Does that make sense?
Yeah. The year starts when they arrive at their project. And so the 3-week orientation isn't part of that. That being said, projects are flexible. We're flexible, definitely. We also work with a volunteer organization in Germany that sends volunteers to us. And so they actually can only be in the country for a year from when they enter the country anyway. So some projects are used to volunteers leaving 3 weeks early just because of that situation, because our German volunteers come in for orientation, 3 weeks of orientation, and then go to their project. So that's something that projects are used to, and we're very flexible with that too. So.
Thank you.
So I know students are going to gain so many valuable skills and opportunities through this, but is there anything that you would suggest for students who might be considering this path early that they would want to do during their time at MU to prepare or to help them, whether it's some sort of involvement or some sort of classes? How could they best prepare themselves for this too?
Hannah, I saw you reaching, so I was going to let you go. Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. This is the hard part about Zoom, right? You can't tell who wants to answer something. You can't give them a look or definitely, I mean, I would say you don't, in order to come into BVS and be successful, you don't need to have any particular experiences. However, I do know that we have projects who, anything with languages, awesome. Other languages, those can be used in a lot of our projects. So I would say that would be something. And I think too, just any kind of leadership you can get involved in is gonna help you no matter what you do, but will help you with BVS also, just in being able to walk into a place and hold yourself with confidence. And yeah, I think that nothing really comes to mind, but I would say leadership and languages probably are two things that would make you stand out, I think.
Great, thank you.
For me, I'm an international student on Manchester. I'm from India. So I have applied for OPT. I used to have like a job, and I was trying to go for OPT application that I was trying to get it done before like spring break, but COVID hit and like things got delayed and stuff. And I applied at least like 3 weeks ago for OPT, and I think I'm not gonna get the authorization at least by like July or something. And I'm staying with my like a friend's house right now because of the current situation. But as soon as the quarantine is lifted and stuff, they are expecting me to like move out and find some place. And so like my question is like, is there any option or is there like any resource available for like people like me, or like to like do something and like to get like a shelter or like a work somewhere until I get my OPT? And I'm still also like looking for other jobs and stuff. It's not like I'm like solely based on this opportunity or something, but like after the quarantine is lifted or something, and this is our finals week in Manchester University. So after the finals over, like, is there something I can work till I get my OPT approved or something?
I don't know that we would have anything specifically through BVS that would start immediately. We are taking into account with our virtual orientation option that some people for those 3 weeks, that having housing and food and all the things that we would have offered during orientation, that people are counting on that for those 3 weeks. So we are taking that time into account, but we don't necessarily have anything between now and then. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good question, and yeah, but I don't think that we have anything that we could fill with that. Jocelyn or Hannah, did you have any other? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
A comment more than a question. I wanted to share that it's a long-standing tradition of Manchester alums doing BVS, including our president's brother used to be the director before Emily. We have lots of recent Manchester alums in BVS right now. We know we have at least one senior this year who's been accepted and headed there, and so you would be joining a family of people who, from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, who have done BVS. And I know I would be, as the Director of Church Relations, happy to connect any of you to anyone to talk more about it from the perspective of a Manchester student going into BVS and from the volunteers' perspective.
I always like to ask the question when talking with people, like, what is it that makes you so passionate about, BVS? What makes it, or, even Becca, if you wanted to talk, like, what are the things that make you passionate? What do you love so much about it? What would you really want to tell students, like, this is the why.
I can share what makes me passionate about it. I was somebody who graduated college and had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, I studied religion in college and was interested in it, but had no path. And so I went into BVS and I served for a year in the Church of the Brethren General offices. And that gave me such good direction. It was not just like the job experiences that I got from it, but it was the connections that I made, the people who mentored me during that time, the space for discernment. And that just helped me figure out what I wanted to do. And now I'm back working with BVS. And so, but that's what makes me passionate, is that it's not just like a career. It really is this like process of discernment and this time for personal growth, and this time to just explore something new and to live somewhere new and meet new people and go out on your own, and a chance to be independent in a relatively like safe environment. BVS, like Becca said, is like, it's like a family, and there are people there who are like supporting you through this process. And yeah, it's just a way to like grow a lot in yourself and figure out who you are. And so that's what makes me passionate about it. And I love helping other people like figure out who they are and what they want to do and like where they're going with their life. And so that's something that I love about BVS.
And BVS, unless it's a brand new project, BVS projects have had volunteers for a long time, and they're used to bringing BVSers under their wing. And so it's different than starting a job where it's like, okay, here's your onboarding, now you're on your own, good luck. Like, not that all jobs are like that, but it really is like, oh, it's our BVSer, and we'll have them over for dinner, and we'll make sure they get to learn like the sites and the town and all about us. And it's a different way of being nurtured and held, a different kind of environment, I would say, than most jobs that I've been onboarded onto at the beginning. I'll also say, like, similar to Hannah, I learned so many things about myself and myself as a worker. I learned so much about event planning in my position, and I use it every day in my job now. But then, just like college, there are those things that you learn that aren't class. There are those things that you learn that aren't your project. Like, I lived in community, and so I learned how to cook vegetarian and gluten-free. I learned how to live with a bunch of people and share space and clean up after ourselves, and share a vehicle. We had one vehicle for 8 of us at one point. And so, like, there are just all these other things that you learn just about life. And I think that would also be the case if you were not living in a community house. That was just my experience.
I would just want to tag on also, I mean, something that makes me very passionate, it's so fun to hear people's BVS stories because they're all similar, but all just a little different. I had quite a different experience than Hannah did, as far as like, I graduated from college, I taught for 1.5 years, and then went into BVS, and then went back to teaching, and then came back to be on staff with BVS. And so Hannah said something about it not just being a career path or trying to help you figure out what to do, like as a job, but we talk a lot in BVS about vocational discernment, and that your vocation isn't necessarily your job, and that no matter what you do in your life for your job, your vocation can follow you. And that has definitely been true for me as a teacher, and then as the coordinator of work camps, and then now as the director. I haven't lost sight of that piece, even though I've done some very different things in my life as my job. BVS had kind of helped me explore my vocation and how I follow that and how I use that in my life.
I think that when I think about BVS, I think about relationships with people. And I think that was one of the biggest aspects about my BVS experience and the experiences that I hope that other people have is just about like passion for people, like to just sincerely care about people. And I think the time that people spend in BVS, you have the opportunity to interact with people that you might not ever interact with and build relationships with people that you would never expect, and have those relationships be very meaningful and very long lived. I know that there are people that I'm still in contact with that I never thought that I would even be friends with prior to the experiences that I've had. And so I think that's a really important aspect of not necessarily the work that you're doing, but the side effects of the things that you do and who you are and just as a person.
Thank you all for sharing. Do we have any other questions? All right, I think I went through my long list. So if there are no more questions, I just want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you, the three of you, for joining us tonight and for sharing about this process, about the changes, and about the excitement and your passion for this work that you're doing through this organization. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. And we will be, well, we have recorded it. We will be posting this for students to be able to take a look at, and also for students who we know who have mentioned that they might be interested before we want to share it with them. So we'll be doing that, and we'll be sure to make those connections.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And also, I mean, if other questions come up, of course, we're available and ready to chat with whoever would like to. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.